Welcome everyone to Read the Book First, the podcast where first we read the book and then watch some movies. Amanda is back.
Hi.
Today is Dracula Movie Festival. We watched a lot of Dracula movies. Before I let past Janessa and Amanda get into this episode, just a little content warning before we talk about these movies. These movies do talk about dark things because they are about vampires and Dracula, but especially the 1992 movie has a lot of explicit materials. So I will put more descriptive content warnings in the description of this podcast and the podcast notes in case you want to look at that. But just be aware that those explicit material will be discussed later on in this episode. We watched Nosferatu from 1922. We watched the Christopher Lee Dracula, The Horror of Dracula from 1958. We watched Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992 and Renfield from 2023. And then Amanda also watched
The 1931 Dracula, because I was like, wait a minute. We didn't watch the Bela Lugosi one?
Yeah.
Wild.
When we were like talking about choosing these, I knew we were going to watch Nosferatu because that's the first one, and it's like referenced and memed so much still today, which we'll talk about in a second. So I was like, okay, that's the first one. And then I was like, what other ones? And then
we picked on those ones, and it's because I specifically have had beef with the Bram Stoker's Dracula ever since I read the synopsis of it.
I didn't know that's why you chose it.
High key, yeah, that's why I chose it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then we chose the Christopher Lee one because we like Christopher Lee.
And I was like, Christopher Lee as Dracula?
Yeah.
Take my money, please.
And then I wanted to watch the Renfield one because it's the most modern Dracula movie that's come out that isn't high-key horror. And as we are part of the Weenie Club, I was like, we can handle this. This is not going to be scary. And also, and I'll argue bits about Renfield. I have thoughts. We have thoughts, which is why there's a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise I would just be sending Janessa endless voice messages all the time.
Mm-hmm. That's true. But to keep ourselves on track so that we don't have a bajillion hour episode for me to edit and for you guys to listen to, we're going to set a 30-minute timer and give each 30 minutes extra time can be added to later movies. It's just to keep us going.
It's to keep me from rambling for a really long time.
And being ultra specific.
Because let's be honest, like, Janessa said we to be nice.
That's true. I'm just so nice. All right, so we're starting with Nosferatu, the 1922 silent German film. Before we actually dive into it, some context, which I find is really interesting and important when you're looking at this. This is a German silent film. This is towards the end of the silent movie era in general, but this is in Germany. These filmmakers were like prolific and artsy, and this was one of the scariest movies for a long time. It was banned in Sweden until the 70s because it was too scary.
Also, they didn't actually get permission for the copyright.
Yeah, so they didn't get permission for the copyright, and so due to that litigation...
Well, they asked permission and they said no.
Yeah, but they made it anyways, and so they changed the names of all the characters in German when they made it, with the subtitles, and I also think that's why they changed some of the plot stuff for the copyright reasons, also time, and also the medium of silent films. That's arguable, but I think there's something there about that. After the movie came out... They went through litigation. They had to destroy all the copies, but a copy had made its way to the United States and got redubbed in English. And then it got big in America, and then it made its way back to Europe. And then it got
because also
big
American
again.
Copyright laws at the time were different, so they were like, "Hey,
exactly,
we're not going to give it to you."
Yeah. So it's a fascinating story of copyright if you're into copyright drama. Nosferatu in general is referenced in almost all of these movies that we'll watch, which I kind of like that we happen to choose the ones that referenced those ones for the most part. I don't think the Christopher Lee one referenced it too much, but I think also it's cool to see, because we've all seen that SpongeBob episode where Nosferatu is blinking the lights on and off.
Yeah.
As a kid, I was like, who the crap is that creepy guy?
I was so scared of that thing.
Every single time, right?
Oh.
And then now watching this, I was like, oh, this makes sense to a bunch of things I've also had no like memory attached to. Like, so I thought that was really cool.
I really liked, I thought this was like genuinely scary for the 1920s.
Oh yeah.
And it was like there were legitimately moments where I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
The version that I watched on Roku channel, I have a feeling cut out some of the dialogue because there were scenes where they like had Jonathan and like Mina interacting, like Nina.
Yes.
Sorry.
Because of the translations back and forth. That's what I think happened. Because it went from German to English and then like,
back to German and then,
Yeah.
But there's like a whole bunch of scenes early on and then like here and there after that where it's just the characters interacting together for a couple minutes and then there's no like
interblurb. Yeah. The copy I had from the library had a decent amount. I've never watched a silent movie that wasn't a like Charlie.
I've never
Chaplin.
watched a silent movie, period.
Not even Charlie, what's his face?
No, I barely have the attention span for
Those
movies.
are like 7 minutes. They're like little clips.
Oh, I thought they were like full movies.
I mean, they're short. Like, this is a longer movie for that time period, and it's barely an hour.
It's true.
Yeah, because it was expensive to make movies, right? And to have them at theaters, etc. So I think getting used to, like, the silent movie effect of it all was tough. The score?
Oh, yeah,
beautiful.
right? It was so scary, except the one quibble I had is sometimes they would have the music be really scary, like something was going to happen. Empty hallway.
Yep.
And it after like the 5th time that it happens, the scary music stops building tension the way that I think it was supposed to.
Yeah, but I think at first with the empty hallways, it does add to the gothicness of it.
Yes.
But I agree.
Especially like towards the end, it's like, okay, I get it. This is a street with rats running on it. Can we move on, please? Yes. So big adaptation things right away. Jonathan and Nina are already married. And then Renfield is the first agent that's sent out to go be the travel. And does he come back and having lost his mind, or has he just gone missing? I can't remember.
He comes back because he's
the one that sends out Jonathan. That's
he's Harker's boss. He's like, you want to make it big in this business, buddy? Go to this guy. And then in back, he's like, hee, blood.
Yeah. like, and then it was like, that's right, because I had the crazy eyebrow thing. I was like, oh, crazy eyebrows equals evil.
Yep.
Because both Renfield and Nosferatu.
Yeah.
The version I had just called him Count Dracula, and then the Nosferatu is just like the reference to something.
Like the beings. He's Count Orloff.
Yeah.
Orlok. Orlok, thank you. Count Orlok is the name they changed Dracula to for the copyright issue. And then that kind of stuck. I don't remember if mine said Dracula because I wrote Dracula in here, but I could have just referred to him as Dracula for my brain.
Yeah.
Who knows? I didn't mind the like changing of characters at all. I think it was good for the silent movie at all. We don't need all that exposition to know that there's Lucy and there's Nina who are bestie. Like we get that as we go, and it just saves time.
And then also, like, Nina has psychic powers the whole time.
She has a connection with, like, seeing Harker. Like, she's just, like, wistfully... Like, when Harker leaves for Transylvania, she is distraught.
Yeah.
And Harker's like, business, money, I'm fine, honey, bye.
He's like, I'll be okay, don't worry yourself. I'm going to leave you at someone else's house like a dog. And I'm like, okay.
I like that he goes... I like it that he finds the Book of Vampires.
I hated that, actually.
Yeah, I liked it for the silent movie aspect of it. If this was a movie where they had lines, I think like that we could hear. I think that'd be different.
Yeah,
but I think it's a good choice for the medium.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I think I just would have liked it better if he didn't just coincidentally find it. If like somebody had like slipped it into his stuff.
Yeah,
but then of course it would have had to be a whole nother 5 minutes of production of.
And since it's a silent movie, it's so like cheesy.
The makeup on Jonathan freaked me out so much because you can just tell that it's like his lips are like caked and stuff, and he's like so ghostly pale, and his eyes are super highlighted.
Yeah,
and it's like, I mean, a man can wear makeup. I have no issue. But also,
they had to make it so contrasted for the black and white of it all.
Yeah.
His travels to the castle is really fast, thank God. And
I think they keep it at the exact right amount where we get the tension from like the village and the creepy stuff with like the striped hyena pretending to be a dog.
The hyena, I think it was supposed to be a wolf.
Yeah. It was supposed to be a wolf.
But I'm like, that's a hyena. Everyone knows that's a hyena.
Nobody in their right mind thinks that that's a wolf, right? Yeah. Why? Did they just not have wolves in Germany at the time?
Maybe it just like the animal handler, that's what they had.
Okay.
Like in the whatever zoo. The castle, I think, was cool with all the bats coming out of it. I think that was a nice touch.
I think the drive over like was actually really scary too, and I thought that was well done. And like Nosferatu, like kind of hiding his face and like
Nosferatu in that carriage. It looked so dumb to me. With his big old hat trying to hide half his face.
So that, not that part, the part with the wolves and like, the darkness. And
but on the carriage?
Yeah, no, it was kind of goofy.
Yeah.
And then the other cool thing is like the way that Nosferatu walks. Like it's just so stilted and weird.
I thought it was, okay, at the time, if I was in 1922, I would have been peeing my pants out of fear. Absolutely. But here, in the year of our Lord 2024, I was cackling. I was kicking my feet. This is like, again, this is just because I'm living in a modern sphere.
I don't watch scary things. So
I don't watch scary things either. And like, there's for sure parts of this that were creepy, but whenever Nosferatu was fully in front of us, like the shadows creeped me out. The like anything that had stuff hidden.
So what about
him walking with his shoulders up, like this? I found silly. I think it makes sense in the 1922 world, and I think it did a good job for the silent movie. I think there was, if he would just like was walking casually, I think that would be done. Like that would have, not made it good. I understand that, but I still thought it was ridiculous.
That's fair. What did you think about the scene where like Jonathan accidentally cuts himself?
That was a good scene.
Yeah. So the way that scene happens is, first of all, Dracula ain't beating the gay allegations in this one.
Nope.
So he's looking at, we only see Jonathan's reaction to Nosferatu like advancing on him the entire time. And it's so cool. And then Jonathan wakes up the next day and was like, well, that was weird. Anyway. And I'm like, oh my God, dude. Can you pretend you have an ounce of common sense?
Harker's big dumb in this one. Which, honestly, it makes it better and scarier. Because, like, that's one of the reasons why in horror movies they always have a, like, ditzy blonde girl for, like, other bad reasons. But, like, having a dumb character for the audience to scream at that, like, the bad guy's gonna get them is, like, a trope. And it plays and adds to the suspense of things, right? And it also makes the audience feel smarter, which often makes people want the movie better.
The movie, yeah.
Right? And so I think it's kind of nice to see Harker as that ditzy blonde character,
right,
in this one, which I thought was fun. And I don't know if this was in your version, but when Harker cuts his thumb when he's like eating or whatever, we have an interstitial of the words, the blood, precious blood, and so like we still get
that was cool.
We still get some of the like important lines from the text, and here they're very obviously very small parts because they don't have much room for text in this movie, which is I think important. If they had too much, it would have been a book.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really well done.
And it's also like really interesting because Jonathan like the next day is like, oh yeah, whatever, and then he goes to like seal the deal with Count Dracula and they do all the signing and all that stuff, and then he like drops his photo of Nina and like Dracula like eyes him and is like, oh, what a lovely throat. And that's when Jonathan's like, oh, scary.
Yeah. And then at one point, Dracula's like coming to the door frame and it's like, I don't remember where exactly this is in the movie, but it freaked me out. And then I love that Harker hides under his blanket. And I was like, me too. Whenever I hear a scary thing at night, I hide under my blanket.
And then they like have Nina wake Harker up or lock the door. Yeah. I don't get that.
That part is silly, but I think they just needed to have Nina in this more so that the audience remembered she was there.
I guess. But we had just seen the photo of her like 2 seconds ago. So like, were their memories that bad?
Movies were new. I don't know. Harker during the day goes on exploring and he finds Dracula's coffin. Mm-hmm. Creepy.com.
Mm-hmm. This was also a point where I was like, Jonathan, what the hell, bro? He finds a body in the coffin, eyes wide open. And instead of running the fuck away like a normal person, he goes back to his room.
Yeah. Like a good little boy.
And I'm like, my dude.
Harker's a sub.
That was actually like a legitimate thing that bothered me. In the castle, it didn't feel like Jonathan was trapped.
Yeah.
And it kind of cut away from the claustrophobia, but whatever.
Yeah.
And then like Jonathan also, God bless him, keeps fainting dramatically every couple minutes, and I'm just like, oh my God, dude.
He's the damsel in distress, which is like the trope from the book, but like played up here.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, I get it, but do something, dude.
Yeah. Harker then sees Dracula loading up the carriages with the boxes, and getting in one, and then it leaving.
And it like speeds up the footage, and it's
Harker falls out of the window.
Yeah.
Some peasants bring him back to like health.
Yep. Yeah. They like have this sort of interesting juxtaposition of like a Van Helsing doctor talking about like,
he's talking about carnivorous plants with the students.
That's right. So he's like showing that off while Renfield is Renfield eating
Renfield's institutionalized by this point.
Yes.
And he's like eating flies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we also get clips of the boat in the water. We don't get like what's going on yet, but we see a boat just at sea. Mm-hmm. And then Nina gets her letter from Harker that he's okay. And Harker eventually travels home at the same time that the boat's arriving to this place, which is not London/England. It is just another
Germany.
town.
So good question on how a boat gets from Transylvania to Germany in an open sea.
The Baltic.
Okay. Am I trying to make too much sense out of a book that just transplanted the story without worrying about geography?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also only an hour long, and it's a silent movie.
Yeah.
They're working with what they got.
Oh, yeah. And so, like, Mina has a dramatic-ass reaction to, like, Dracula coming in. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, is Nina, like, a witch? Is that her deal? And I don't know.
She's just very in tune with the world and the spirits and stuff. I don't know. I'm making shit up.
I mean, fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, she, like, starts sleepwalking and says, he's coming, I must go. And this is before she's been bitten. Mm-hmm. Renfield starts screaming, my master is coming. Like, all, like, those, like, signs are all starting to pick up. Dracula arrives from the boat. He carries the coffin around this town.
By himself.
And it is the funniest. Just this man who, again, Nosferatu, we haven't really described how he looks. He's like bald with big ears,
pointy ears,
very pale, dark eye makeup, and his shoulders
teeth sticking out.
His shoulders are up to his ears. His fingernails/fingers are like 5 inches longer than most people's, and he's creeping along carrying this big ass coffin from one side of the street to the other, and it's my favorite part of this movie.
So then they like kind of cut to the ship arriving. And this one also, I was kind of like, we literally got to see what was happening because we saw all the people like disappear one by one.
Yeah.
Why do we now need to reread the log with the characters?
Yeah. I think, because they connect the boat. The people of the town think there's a plague there. And so they're ordered to everyone to shut into their homes, which obviously... It's because Dracula's there, but they don't know that.
I mean, there are like a whole bunch of rats, so it could be like a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But honestly, that led to a really, really cool shot of like there's like 1 billion different like coffins being led down the street, and it's like, oh shit! It's a good oh shit moment. They didn't kill Lucy,
no,
which is fine, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
Jonathan like has this book and he's like, Mina, don't read it.
The Book of Vampires.
The Book of Vampires. Nina, don't read the book. And then Nina reads the book because she's
Nina.
Yeah, like, and Jonathan, God bless him, but
no one's gonna stop him. Like I said earlier, he's
no one's gonna listen to you, baby.
No,
you fainted.
Yes.
in danger.
And in this book, don't worry, everyone. How can we kill Dracula? Well, a woman of pure heart can break his spell by giving him blood and willingly, and has to keep him near till dawn.
Uh-huh.
And we're like, okay.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. And so Nina's sleepwalking. The window opens, and Dracula watches and controls her from afar. She like takes off the cross. No, that's a different one.
That's a
I'm
different
getting
one.
all the Draculas confused because I watched them within 4 days of each other.
Yeah, big mood. But like really what happens is she like tosses and she turns. She hears that her friend Lucy is sick and it's very stressful. Mm-hmm. She's been seeing like Dracula stare at her all like every single night. And so she's rereads the thing. She sends like, she tells Jonathan to go get the doctor. Yeah. And then basically lets Dracula in to offer herself and save everyone.
Yeah. And then he is there drinking from her neck until the sun comes up, and then he burns.
Oh, but we got to talk about that shadow coming up the stairs.
The shadow work. Excellent.
Mm-hmm. So basically, like, as Nina is waiting in bed for Dracula or to come in, you see his shadow edge up the stairs and just see his like long fingers go to grab her. And it was like, I legitimately got chills.
Yes.
So cool.
That one's really good.
Dracula bursts into
he bursts into flames.
And then Nina dies.
Does she die?
Yeah, she dies. Okay. I looked it up because I was like, they didn't just kill Nina,
I wrote, last thing I was like, did Nina die? I didn't know. So she dies.
She dies. Yeah.
Sacrificing a virgin.
Sacrifice? Well, they're I don't think she's a virgin.
I know.
Sacrificing a woman.
The pure of heart.
Yeah.
So my thoughts about Nosferatu, I think watching a silent film from over 100 years ago was a really fun experience. Mm-hmm. I don't want to watch a ton of silent movies, but correct. I think if I do, it'll be movies like this that are more like suspenseful. I think that's where that's where the silent movie aspect of it plays up. Mm-hmm. I think Nosferatu was probably the creepiest thing alive back then, but I found him hilarious when I saw him in person. The shadows, the hands, creepy.
I found him pretty creepy. There are but the moments of like speeding him up, I just hear the Benny Hill theme. Yep. Mm-hmm. And then with him walking around town with the coffin, like, bro. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good adaptation, though. I think they like make some really smart choices, like making Renfield the one that sends Jonathan on the mission and like introducing him earlier so he's not just some random guy. Don't love that they kill Mina for no reason.
Yeah, but like also her character was weird and not like,
and it doesn't make any sense because she's a witch.
Yeah,
that's all. That's kind of what I walked away from this movie feeling like is Nina's a witch.
Yeah. I think that part was the worst part of it, but I think the rest was pretty good.
It was pretty good. Yeah.
My only last fun fact I have that we haven't talked about already was that the creators were inspired by their experiences in the Great War.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. All right. The Horror of Dracula, the 1958 one, which is also just called Dracula, but they published it under The Horror of Dracula to distinguish it from the 1931 one. But it's also just called Dracula, so it has 2 titles.
Yeah. It was a series of 10 different films.
I liked this one. And I liked it for, like, nostalgic reasons. So this movie is one of those, like, Technicolor movies from the 50s, obviously. And growing up, my mom loved the movies from the 50s and 60s that were super Technicolor, like Sound of Music, Wizard of Oz, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, So Dear to My Heart, like, all these, like, very Technicolor movies. So, like, I grew up watching those a lot. And so immediately watching this on all, like, the Technicolor color of it, I was like, I like this. But I'm not saying this is a good one. I'm just saying I enjoyed it.
I have pretty mixed feelings about this one, to be perfectly honest. Because, like, it starts off, like, good. So, like, you know, it's a very classic Jonathan Harker comes to Castle Dracula.
We have the opening of a book with the voiceover Harker's Journal. I love that trope.
Yeah.
And that's a very 50s, 60s movie thing. Like Once Upon a Time. It's like, here's Harker's Journal. I loved that.
And it was really nice. It was also so cool because like he crosses over into the creek in the castle and all of nature just stops. There are no birds singing. There's no nothing. He feels cold. It's just so cool.
Yes. I like that he has accepted a job to be Dracula's
librarian. Yeah.
And like this is obvious Dracula just wanting someone there to eat, right? It's just a trap thing.
Yeah.
But I
kind of hate this is like
I liked it.
I didn't hate that Jonathan. What I hated was like, first of all, this lady comes up to him and he's like, you need to help me.
Before this is before he even meets Dracula, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before he even meets Dracula, this lady comes up and is like, you need to help me escape. I'm a prisoner here and I'm trapped. And then Jonathan's like, huh?
You're trapped.
Which I'm afraid I don't understand it. I'm like, dude, what do you mean you don't understand? Which makes sense in like 10 minutes.
Yes, but at first you're like,
Jonathan, what the fuck?
I mean, he was dumb in the last movie, and here we have him being dumb now. Mm-hmm. And then Christopher Lee as Dracula makes his entrance. Mm-hmm. And that cape, the fashion. This Dracula has got money.
Can I admit something really dumb?
Yes.
He showed up, and I was like, wait a minute, he's not old.
Oh, with the actor? Mm-hmm. As in, like, when he is in Lord of the Rings and stuff? Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was in 1958, Amanda.
You mean to tell me that a movie that was made 50 years prior, he wasn't as old looking?
Yeah.
I know. I just, like, the object permeates, man.
But, like, his cape.
Yeah. And his voice wasn't as deep, which was kind of...
Yeah.
But that's honestly, I really like, and this is something that I is sometimes missing in other adaptations, where Dracula is pretty like chill and normal seeming for a good little bit.
It was a little bit shocking that Christopher Lee's voice was just so British because we are so used to having this like weird fake accent from people. And it was at first jarring, but then I was like, but also if Dracula is trying to be a modern man, he's going to adapt. Like, they are not saying this. This is Janessa rationalizing.
Well, it's also true because it's part of it's a detail in the book too that like Jonathan's like, yeah, his English was really good. There was barely an accent. Yeah. And it's like an easy thing to overlook because, you know,
there's so much in the book.
There's a lot of words.
Yeah.
And Dracula like tries to explain away the like lady, and I'm like, okay. And he's like, oh yeah, my housekeeper's away, and like yada yada yada. He gets the key, and then he sees like the
picture
of Lucy
on the mantle. Yes. And then when this happened, I stopped the movie and I looked at Isaac and I was like, Amanda's gonna hate this. Was I right?
Okay, hate is a really strong word. The thing that is actually gonna be the thing that annoys me the most is the fact that seconds later, after like he locks the door and goes about his merry way, he's like, I'm here to kill Dracula. And I was like, why? Why are we already jumping here? And that's the thing that I was like, really like, this is a turnoff for me. Him and Lucy being together, they really just swapped names. Yeah. And I know I love Mina. I'm not that fucking nuts, man. Well.
Him being a vampire killer, I think, is a silly choice. I don't hate it for this because also you have to realize in the 50s, by this point, there have been over a dozen Dracula movies and spin-offs like Children of Dracula, The Brides of Dracula, The Cousin and Stepbrother of Dracula. Like, you know, there's a bazillion Dracula remakes for TV and for movies. And so I think it's a way to change the story slightly. I don't think it's
I don't think it works.
I don't think it works quite well either, but like they could have changed things that, you know what I mean? Like they could have changed other things to make it different.
So like,
but it does take, I will say it does take away a lot of the like the fear of it all when he's in the castle. And also the castle itself is like not that scary compared.
It's like blue.
It's like, it's the technicolor of it all, but also the architecture. Like the pillars are like twirly pillars, which is like smooth. And I'm like, this is obvious. I mean, obviously it's a set. It's just like, which I love for the campiness reason. But like, it's nothing about the castle besides it's dusty and there's locked doors. It makes it scary. Yeah. And like the vampires.
Yeah. Well, and then it's like there I feel like there are some pretty good moments of tension that are happening here. But it's kind of undercut because Jonathan being a vampire hunter almost makes the fact that he's still dumb worse, right? Because it's like, dude, you're trying to fight the like big bad vampire of the big bad vampires. And you're just like, yes, random lady, get close to me. Random lady in a vampire's castle.
Yeah.
Fun fact, dude.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to Van Helsing on the scene, but I just feel like there's like 20 minutes missing from this movie. And I would have wanted it like at the beginning kind of like where it's more about, I don't know, Jonathan, like we see Jonathan and Van Helsing actually interact and like he's like, hey, I'm gonna go do this thing, and Van Helsing's like, can you wait like a week and
or even read a letter,
like
something like
just
that.
Something that shows that like gives it a little bit of that tension of like Jonathan being overconfident or whatever, and just something like that I feel like would have given it a lot more oomph. Yeah,
I think that's fair.
Another note is, as like Christopher Lee was very Britishly walking Jonathan up the stairs, and I kind of wrote a note about like, I feel like Lee isn't giving the menace and overbearingness of Dracula, and then the crypt scene happens, and I was like, oh, okay, there it is.
It's just he was pretending to be British and reserved.
Yeah, and he's,
Harker encounters the lady who doesn't have a name. She's just the vampire lady. The lady is again begging for help, and he's like trying to get her to like
show him her neck.
Yeah. No, he's trying to get her to like admit what was going on. It's like he's like trying not to fall for her vampire trap, but she's also doing a better job at him of trapping him. You know, like it's whether there's the hypnosis, it's just him being a dumb man who wants to save a woman. Like, you know what I mean? Like whatever it is, she's doing a better job at this.
And then it like happens just in time where like Dracula comes in and he's pissed off, and we see like his full teeth extend.
And his bloody mouth.
His mouth is bloody. He's like, he throws that lady to the ground like it's absolutely nothing. And then like Jonathan wakes up in bed.
Yeah. And he sees bite marks on his neck, and he's devastated because he's, unlike other Jonathans in different movies, he knows what had happened. He knows that he's
and this is another thing that I'm like about is like one bite from a vampire automatically makes you a vampire.
Yeah.
And I think that's dumb, and it doesn't make sense. That's the pop
culture of what's like, because, you know, again, all these Dracula movies within the context of Dracula cinema have the like mythos of Dracula has already changed so much in pop culture by this point that like, because nowadays, like before rereading Dracula, I was like, one bite from a vampire, you are a vampire. Like it was like that quick. And that's how a lot of people think in pop culture, and I bet that's what influenced this, and also like the timing of the movie, right? Which is, I agree, it's just like it's not very
logical. And I mean, like, this might just be because even when I was like 6 and thinking about vampires, I was like, it doesn't make sense that a vampire bites you and you turn into a vampire, because then we're all going to be vampires.
Yeah, but it's like people being scared of rabies. It's like people being scared of various STIs. Like it's like very much all lumped together, and that like it happens once, it's it.
Well, and to be fair, in the book, like they say very explicitly, like, hey, if you get bit by a vampire, you'll turn into a vampire when you die, whenever that is.
Yeah. So,
but it's just that it's easier to just be like, oh, one vampire bite.
Yeah, but so he writes in his journal, like, whoever finds me, make sure you kill me. This is what's happening. And then he hides his journal in a rock/altar outside the castle.
Crossroads, technically. I mean, and credit to Jonathan. He's like, hey, I gotta figure this out. And he like goes to try to kill Dracula.
Yep.
Except he kills the lady first.
He goes to the lady first.
And kills her first.
Which is what almost every movie/book does, is they kill the lady first. And I think it just adds the suspense, right? Because if you kill the big bad first, then...
And then there's no movie, I know.
The way they filmed that, though...
It is pretty damn
the
cool.
whole, like... Yeah, so, like... This part we finally get the spookiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have the like shot, like we see it's like cut back and forth of him holding the wooden stake and the big hammer, and then the shadow, and then all the like
we
fake
see
blood.
like Dracula's eyes like pop open, and then the next thing we know, it's shadow, and then we get into like, and it's also really horrifying.
Oh, it's gross.
Something that like I did not realize and has been sorely lacking in all other forms of vampire media that I've consumed. How absolutely brutal it is to drive a wooden stake through somebody's ribcage into their heart.
Yeah.
Obvious, I know.
Yeah, but like, I mean, you know, because you've watched this movie, not like thinking, right? Like that's intense. But I also really like Dracula, like the lady gets old and like shrivels up, and then he goes to Dracula's coffin and it's empty, and then Dracula's in the doorway and the door closes and it fades to black.
Yeah.
And that's like, that's good.
That's so spooky.
That's good.
And then we cut to Van Helsing, like trying to find his friend.
In the pub.
/inn. And he's like, hey, do you have a meal? Yeah. Hey, why do you have garlic hanging up?
'Cause.
Hey, have you seen my friend?
No.
What are you afraid of?
Nope.
What are you? Oh.
And then his daughter Inga, shout out to all the Ingas out there, comes out and is like, "Here's your meal. Also, I found this in the crossroads. Don't tell my daddy."
I did not think he was her dad.
That she says that.
I didn't pick up on that.
Anyways, and that's how Van Helsing gets the journal, which then gives him the like, oh, this is what's going on.
So then Van Helsing goes and he sees this invisible coffin, like run away.
It's not invisible, it's white and gold, but it's like, because it's beautiful and fancy. And he almost gets ran over by it.
Yeah, he ducks away.
I didn't mention this earlier when Harker finds the crypt. They go like barely outside the castle, and then it's just like down the side, and it's like a very obvious door, so much so that when Van Helsing gets to there, he does go and check out the room, which was torn apart. But then he goes back to the front and then he sees it right away, and I found that funny.
Yeah, that's fair.
Where is it? Oh, crypt. Coffins. Aha!
Yeah, so when I first watched this, the impression that I got, because like I found this movie kind of boring.
Yeah.
I like spaced out and I didn't realize that Jonathan like hid his book. I thought that like Dracula buried it. But yeah, it makes more sense that Jonathan buried it because Dracula would have just burned it.
Yep.
Then
Lucy's picture is taken out of the frame.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He finds Jonathan in the crypt. He's a vampire. Dun dun dun. So he stakes his friend.
Yeah. Which that's horrifying. You know, and it's like bloody and gross like the other scene, right? They don't just like immediately fade the black, which I think is good. Like they keep the horror up, because now the horror is not necessarily the vampires. It's, oh, we have to kill our friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, again, it just would have meant a little more if we had seen them interact before.
Yeah.
But it's okay. You know, it's okay.
I mean, it's very like 50s movie. Like a random guy comes in, hey, we were best friends once. I'm going to solve this mystery. Like that's like very 50s movie.
Very fair. Yeah. Oh, and then like we see Lucy sick in bed and she looks like an actual baby.
Yeah. And she looks, not good. Yeah. And so we have Dr. Seward. We have her brother Arthur, who is married to Mina. Those are the people.
Yeah.
That we like are hovering around this like rich house. And then they have a maid who I forget her name, and the maid has a daughter whose name is Tanya.
Yes. I did not realize that Tanya was the maid's daughter at first. I thought it was like Mina's and her husband's daughter. And so like there's a couple of lines where they're like, I told you not to bother Mrs. Yada Yada. And I was like, don't bother your mom?
Yeah, I thought that too. I'm like, oh, rich people. But then later on it mentions that it was the maid's daughter. I was like, oh, so I mean that's nice that you just let her have her daughter there. That's cool.
I guess it's supposed to show that they're nice rich people.
I guess. Which is very Dracula of them.
Very Dracula of them.
Yeah.
The other like kind of gripe I got with this movie, and maybe it's just because I can't pick up on subtlety sometimes. All the women just seem like the second they get bit, they're like, yes, my master, and crawling all over Dracula.
Yeah.
And it's weird because like they say very explicitly, Jonathan has a line about, hey, you're fully aware of the process and it's horrifying to you. And I'm like,
is that in the movie or in the book?
In the movie.
Okay.
That was like a thing that he said out loud when he was like, hey, when you realize you're getting turned into a vampire, it's horrifying. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's see that energy. Let's keep that same energy.
Yeah.
We did not keep that same energy.
No. I wonder, I just took that as like he knew what was happening because he's a vampire hunter.
I still think it's like his first job.
No, I think you probably heard it correctly. That's what I thought. And so I didn't have this.
Oh, no, I just meant that it's his first time actually doing any vampire hunting.
Oh. Gotcha.
Because he was bad at it.
Oh. Okay.
Jokes are always funnier when you get to explain them.
I don't know. I think the rest of the movie is okay. Lucy starts, doing the whole opening the window, taking off her cross thing. Van Helsing is like listening to himself on research or something. Like, what a man thing to do.
And then Seward's like this bumbling doctor who's like, oh, it's fine. And I'm like, you know what? This is the treatment that Jack Stewart deserves.
Yes.
And then Tanya, the little girl, goes, if you know what's wrong with her, why don't you make her better?
I love that Tanya yells at Seward. I wrote that down. I'm like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Just treat Seward. We don't care about Seward.
And then like Van Helsing comes in and he like does the like typical stuff that he does to protect Lucy. He hangs garlic up. He tells him to keep the windows shut. Lucy throws a full ass fit and
She's
Gerda gives in.
Yep.
Gerda gives in and opens the window.
Dracula comes and drinks from her and then she dies. Dun, dun, dun. And Arthur blames Van Helsing, and then Van Helsing gives him the diary, and then he's like in shock, like, this doesn't make sense. What? And then Tanya's randomly returned home from a policeman, and you're like, where'd the child go? But also, where did the child go? Right? And
she's like, Auntie Lucy said hi, and then she bit me.
She took me for a walk.
She took me for a walk, and she was being scary. And I'm like, and this is the point where I was like, if one bite equals vampire, why not everyone vampire?
I don't think Tanya didn't get bit.
Yeah, I figured that out.
Yeah. They go to the tomb. It's empty. They have Tanya. They see Tanya with Lucy again in the woods. So, like, what is... I know the maid's probably busy cleaning these rich people's houses, but you would think they'd get the maid a day off, to watch over the daughter during this fiasco.
You would think.
You would think.
They're not that nice of rich people.
No. They need stuff dusted. And so Arthur finally, like, understands what's going on and, like, comes to it because this is his sister in this version.
Oh, and then his sister does the, like, let me kiss you. And it's like, oh, the man who was going to marry your sister dies. Yeah. Then your sister dies. And this kind of horrifying version of your sister, like, comes and haunts you. And it's also really funny because he dramatically flings himself against the wall when when Lucy's getting back in the coffin. And then Van Helsing's like, hey, you ready to kill her?
Yeah. As this is going on, a messenger randomly goes to the door and is like, hey, Mina, Arthur told me to tell you to go to this random place. And she's like, okay.
And I'm like, ma'am.
The child has ran away. You did not notice. Now you're going to listen to this other child?
Not only that, but it's like, ma'am, you're like, he's like, my husband's out of town. And he's like, I don't know.
Yeah. And this is after they've killed Lucy and they're now trying to track down
Dracula. Yeah. Because Arthur's like, because Van Helsing's like, hey, can we use your sister to track down Dracula? And Arthur's like, the fuck, my dude.
Yeah. Yeah. When the little messenger boy came up and said this, I was like, what kind of pranks do you think you could have done with messenger boys back then? I would have done so many pranks if I had money and access to messenger boys.
Well, and so like the other thing is she goes to this random ass house, right? There's coffins everywhere.
It's a mortuary.
Yeah, why the fuck would you go in there? Because
her husband told her to, and women do what they're told.
I did like that they kind of start showing the hypnosis part of it a little bit more. And I was like, okay, so it's not just that the women are like
susceptible, it's that they're getting hypnotized. Yeah. So Dracula is in the house and hypnotizes her. Then Dracula kisses and then bites. And then there's a screeching owl. And it scared me. How dare it? The boys think Mina is safe. And then they come inside and they see that she is, in fact, bitten. And they start immediate blood transfusions. And then we find out that Mina had previously told the maid not to go in the cellar. And then they're like, oh, shit.
Oh, because it's also really cool because, like, they watch the house all night, and they're like, oh, cool, Mina's fine. And then they find her with the blood transfusions, and they're like, oh, shit. And then that's when the Gerda comes in with the cellar, and they're like, oh, shit.
Because they're like, we need some wine. And she's like, well, but I can't go down there.
She said not to go down there, and after I killed Miss Lucy, I don't want to do that again. And I'm like, honestly,
fair.
Fair.
Poor maid.
Poor maid, indeed. I loved seeing more Christopher Lee.
Yes.
I wish there was more of him in this movie, period.
Yes.
But that's almost like it's a problem with the original book.
Yeah. And that's on Stoker.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Yeah. And then we have this whole thing where Van Helsing gets trapped in the cellar, and Dracula is like for like a little bit, like not long, but enough for Dracula to like escape. Arthur and Van Helsing chase Dracula back towards his home country. He has Mina with her in a coffin. I don't remember how that happened because he starts to bury Mina when she wakes up in the dirt. Yeah, and that part was cool and creepy. So like they're back at Castle Dracula by the like very not secret crypt.
Yeah,
and, like literally just right out, same set piece. Dracula fights Van Helsing, which I thought was really fun and really dramatic. And
really cool fight scene.
I liked it.
And then like Van Helsing almost gets it, but he breaks the window so that
he tears down the curtain.
He tears down the curtain and traps Dracula in the sunlight.
And then he disintegrates.
And he looks like a Muppet.
It was so cheesy and so fun.
This whole thing high key inspired my Muppet Dracula.
Yeah, but then Mina's healed, and that's how it ends. Yeah. So I liked this movie. It's not good, and it's not a good adaptation. I like this movie.
I don't think it's that bad as an adaptation.
It's okay.
I think the second half is okay as an adaptation. Like they kind of distill it down to like the parts that are dramatic and important. And the only thing that really fucks up as an adaptation is Jonathan being a vampire hunter.
Yes.
Literally everything else is fine.
I love Christopher Lee in this. I think if he had more screen time, he would have been one of the best Draculas ever. And like he is like one of the best Draculas in Dracula cinema. But he's not the top 3, but he's for sure top 5.
Is Renfield in this movie?
No. But I'm okay with like that kind of stuff. I also love 50s and 60s movies with Technicolor. Technicolor and Gothic do not match up, and I think that plays against this movie.
Yep.
But it also makes it so that scaredy pants Janessa does not get scared while watching it.
I mean, fair enough. I think I kind of got bored at different parts.
Yeah,
and I don't think it's that good of a movie. I think Christopher Lee as Dracula is really cool. I think it's an okay adaptation. Like again, barring the one thing.
Yeah,
I don't really care that they like swapped Arthur and Mina.
Yeah,
that they swapped Arthur and Jonathan.
Yeah,
I think that's fine.
Yeah, they're fine. Yeah,
because it's really like functionally he's playing the same role of like oh my goodness, bad things are happening to my wife.
Yeah. Do you want to hear fun facts? Yes. As we have 2 minutes left of our time of this movie. Christopher Lee only had 15 lines, and most of them were done in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Fucking really?
Yeah, 15 lines, right? He did not get paid much for this. He got paid less than $1,000 for this.
Oh shit, man.
Yeah.
I hope he sued them.
I think he just had an amazing career and lived a very happy, rich life. The cape Christopher Lee wore in the beginning as Dracula went missing for over 30 years, and then they found it in 2007 in some costume storage. It is now worth over $50,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And then also Christopher Lee wore contacts during the movie of this, and he could barely see whenever he was wearing the contacts. So when he's like coming in to save/stop the lady from drinking Harker, he like overshot his like movement and like hit the camera because he couldn't like see because of the contacts. Francis Ford Coppola's 1992 version of Bram Stoker's Dracula. Have you watched a Francis Ford Coppola's movie before?
No.
Okay. Do you know anything about Coppola?
Yeah, he like did The Godfather, and then a movie called Jack that Robin Williams was in, and then also like a couple and a whole bunch of other ones that I can't remember off the top of my head.
He also is like kind of like the king of this like weird nepo baby Hollywood.
Oh yeah, because his daughter, and he's the father of Sofia Coppola. But I kind of like her stuff.
And Nick Cage is his nephew.
Nick Cage is his nephew?
Okay. We can't do it right now on the podcast because we're on a time limit, but when you get home, Amanda, you need to just look up the family tree of Coppola, and you will be amazed about how big that nepo baby tree is.
Okay.
Yes.
Will do.
Before we get into it, this movie I loved. Okay, I think it's good at some parts. I don't know about the adaptation part. We can get to that. But I really liked it. But I also was almost a film major, and I also love movies like this that are just so layered with crap that I love.
I can see how this is a good movie.
Yes.
And I think it is a good movie. There's just too many boobs.
Again, it's a Coppola movie.
Yeah.
And there was supposed to be more nudity, and we could talk to it when we get to there. Before we even dive in, do you want to know the genesis of this movie?
When Winona Ryder found this script and she brought it to Ford Coppola.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a TV movie. Even though this has like the Coppola like effect on it, this is the most, I would argue, most closely adaptation.
Yeah, I actually agree.
Yeah. And another funny thing that's a very Coppola thing is he had the whole staff read the book Dracula out loud to each other for 2 full days before getting into rehearsals. And it shows.
Yeah. Again, objectively, this is a very good movie. Everyone plays their parts really well except for one notable exception.
Which pains me a little bit.
Yeah. But like it's really, I think they make some really smart choices in terms of adaptation wise. Like, you know, the movie begins and
the backstory.
They give the backstory of Dracula and how he became Dracula and how he used to be like a crusading knight and he looks like the Shredder in his red outfit.
Yep.
Then he like walks off and he like wins a battle.
But the people he was fighting against sent a letter to his love, Elizabeth, lying to her, being like, "Hey, we killed your husband."
And so she kills herself.
Jumps off a cliff.
At her funeral,
yeah,
the Orthodox priests sit there and be like, "Yeah, so she's going to hell because she like killed herself."
Yeah,
and I was like, "Dude, not the time,
not the time,
not the time."
Yeah, and then he stabs the cross, and a bunch of blood comes out, and that's how he gets cursed to be Dracula. And I think that is such a fun because we don't get like the true like beginning of Dracula in the book. Really, like we get random history that doesn't really make sense. But I like this and adds to the drama and. Important to note, Elizabeth is played by Winona Ryder, which is very important for later parts of this version.
And then they open up with Renfield.
Yes.
And this is the version where Renfield has come back and he has lost his ever-loving mind.
Yes. And he's eaten flies, and he was Dracula's first solicitor. And so...
They send out Jonathan, who's Keanu Reeves, and like, God bless him. This is the worst.
And he has gone on record saying that this is one of the movies that he's the most disappointed by his own work in. And he says during this year or the 2 years between like the before and after this movie, was making a movie because this is big Keanu Reeves time. And so he was chosen against Coppola's will. Like, this is a studio pick to get someone who would bring in young teenage girls because that's how you make money a lot of times in Hollywood.
Francis Ford Coppola does have this like really interesting quote about Keanu where he's like, he was trying so hard to do the accent that I think he like worried about messing it up.
And that's the worst part about his acting is the accent is bad. Yeah.
The accent is bad and he's so monotone. And like, I don't know if y'all have picked up on this. I'm not a huge movie person.
Yeah.
So I haven't really seen Keanu Reeves in anything.
Have you never seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
No.
Oh my God. We got to watch it, Amanda. Honestly, in my top 10 favorite movies of all time.
I love that for you.
I love Keanu Reeves. And my boy, this is not your strongest movie. And that's okay. You know who Coppola wanted to be Harker?
I feel like I read it, but I don't remember.
Johnny Depp.
Okay.
But like 92 like way pre-Caribbean Johnny Depp. For Edward Scissorhands, but Depp would have been a great Harker. Because he's also just inherently gothic.
Yeah.
We know Keanu's not doing the best. But anyways, Harker
says goodbye to his wife, Mina. His fiancée, Mina.
His fiancée, Mina. Oh, who is who? The same actress, who plays Elizabeth.
The passion, the chemistry, it's so non-existent.
Yeah, they don't have a great chemistry, which is fine. The tone of this movie throughout is good. It is extra gory. It is salacious. It is red. The costumes are huge. It won an Oscar for costume design, for set design, for sound design, and for something else that I'm forgetting. What are the design ones? And that's, I think, the strongest suit of this movie is that everything.
It's the aesthetic.
The aesthetic is so good. It's so 90s gothic. Mm-hmm. I love it. It makes my heart happy.
I liked some of it. He gets to the castle, like Gary Oldman plays Dracula, and his hair looks like a penis, and he's immediately old and creepy and scary.
He is so old and creepy and gross, and the wig is wigging, and the makeup is bad, and I love this version of Dracula here for this moment, because he's like charismatic, but also disgusting.
Yeah.
And I like that.
If Keanu Reeves had turned out a better performance, I think it would have worked better.
Yes.
Because, like, you know, Gary Oldman threatens him with a sword. Because he, like, goes on a rant about the olden days and, like, how the church betrayed him and stuff.
And Parker giggles for awkwardness, because he's like, haha.
And then, like, he, like, gets, like, a sword pointed at him, and he's like, and I can see what they're going for.
And then the shadow in the background, though.
Uh-huh.
The shadows are cool. One thing Coppola said is that whenever Dracula's in the room, physics does not obey the normal rules. It has different rules.
His shadow does
all kinds of
shit.
stuff. Rats will be randomly on the ceiling when Dracula's around. I think that's a fun little twist.
I think it's a good way, and it's just like I can see what they're going for with Jonathan, where like he is the solicitor on his big first assignment. He doesn't understand the rich people. He just wants to do his job.
Yeah,
and honestly, that's very relatable.
Yeah. So they do business, and while they're doing that, the shadow is like moving and like separate. Like the shadow, I'm obsessed with it. I love it. Harker writes letters that he's staying a month longer, like he does in the book. And then we go back to England, where Mina is.
Mina gets the letter, and she's like, "Oh, it sounds so weird. It doesn't sound like
sound like him." Also, she's like giggling at pornographic pictures. And then we meet Lucy, who is
Lucy, the slut.
The slut that's rich. Mm-hmm. And Mina makes a note being like, "I don't think Jonathan would like me hanging out with Lucy because of her money." Is it because of her money, girl? I don't. I think that's from some other reasons. But there's a party, and Lucy is like teasing Mina, is like, "I have these 3 men, look at me deal with them," and goes to flirt one by one. So she first flirts with Mr. Texas, Mr. Quincy Morris,
and she like, "Let me touch it."
Yeah, and then it pulls out a knife from him. It's over sexual, which I think parts of it are not great, but I think for the tone of this overall movie, I think it's fine. And for what people wanted in the early 90s. Again,
could be for other reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish it was just more repressed, because I think like that's where a lot of the tension can come in.
I mean, Mina's very repressed.
Yeah, Mina's very repressed.
I think they're trying to balance it.
And honestly, I went into this expecting so much to hate the like Mina Dracula thing, and I still do. But, like, I do see what they were going for. It just doesn't work.
And then she flirts with Dr. Seward. And then who comes in but Mr. Holmwood, played by our homeboy. Did you see who played it?
No.
The guy who plays Wesley. What's his fucking name?
Carrie Elwes?
Carrie Elwes is...
Really?
Is our homeboy Arthur.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
I didn't notice.
I was like,
he had a mustache, that's why.
Not Looney Tunes logic working on Amanda in 2024.
They all looked the same to me.
Sometimes I think you're a little face blind. But I think it's not like actual face blindness. I think it's just that you just don't care to care. Which is very fair. Like, that's your prerogative.
I put together people's faces with hair, and that's it.
I think you're face blind.
I do not need to tell apart these 3 functionally identical men.
No, you don't. Dr. Stewart's phonographic journal, as he's talking to Renfield, and the insane asylum is creepy here.
Yeah,
and
it's
horrible.
Instead of being like the clean one that it is in the book, it's like an actual insane asylum,
which I think is better.
You know, smarter,
and
like
it adds to the gothics.
And it's
vibe.
Also like real Victorian England, because people who were mentally ill were not treated well in Victorian England. Shockingly.
Yeah. But we have Renfield eating the flies here. and calling about his master and how blood is going to give him eternal life and stuff. And then it cuts back to Harker in his room at the castle, and he's like writing his journal or something, but he feels Dracula's hand on his hand, but it's not there. And we see a shadow. We turn around and Dracula's at the door.
This was the point where I was like, Reeves, you're killing me here, man. Like, you're so nonchalant that there's no tension here at all, bro. Like, it's giving kid at school play where everyone gets apart.
Yeah, it is.
And then Oldman's there acting his fucking face off. And it's just like, oh, okay, bro.
Oh, he's shaving. That's what it is. Harker cuts his neck, and suddenly the mirror, and then Dracula comes up to him, and then they look in the mirror, and it shatters, and it looks like he's like making the mirror shatter almost, and then he starts shaving Harker for him, and that was creepy.
That was like, that's pitch perfect, like from the book, because he's got a razor to, not like from the book, because it doesn't happen, but the way that scene plays out with the no boundaries, too much touching, like imminent threats of violence without actually making threats of violence. Yeah, Gary Oldman really does a great job of selling this vibe of like Count Dracula, who has these like tragic, interesting aspects of his character in this first part, and also being this blood-driven monster.
Yeah.
In the first part.
Yeah. He sees a picture of Mina. I think it might have happened before. But he like almost has a panic attack because that's his Elizabeth. Harker wrote a letter to Lucy, and so Dracula's going to mail it or takes it off. He has the letter, and so he notices the address of Lucy, and so he's like, this is where I can find her. Right? Mm-hmm. And then we see Dracula climb down the castle like a lizard.
Yeah, and that was so cool.
So good.
And then like Harker goes exploring, and he finds the brides, but there's more of them, and
there's only 3.
Okay, it feels like there's more of them because they have boobs popping out everywhere.
There's only 3. The boobs do pop out a bit. Harker is kind of like assaulted / hypnotized. It's very assaulty, which I think
is good because that captures the vibe
captures
from the book.
The horror from the book.
And this is like this is one moment that I'm going to give Reeves, is he really does capture that. Like, oh my God, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, originally those women were going to be completely naked, but no one on set was brave enough, and they had to sign up and like agree to do that. But no one on set was brave enough to ask them in the moment, so that's why there's only boobs out, allegedly.
Okay.
There's some other bad stuff that happens later in this movie that we'll talk to when we get to it, but that one's like and like things like this tend to happen in Coppola's movies.
I'm shocked.
That are like pushing the line. They, and you can look
you
culture
mean
stuff up.
Shockingly, the man from the like 70s, 80s, and 90s maybe isn't that great at portraying women?
Anyways, Dracula bursts in and stops the feeding, and this is where he says, I too can love, and then feeds them the baby, and Harker sees him fill boxes with earth. But I love that we get that, and I'm like, but sadly, this Dracula is too straight.
Yeah, it's almost there, but it's like, it's the 90s, and they're scared of gay people.
Yeah. Then we get back to Lucy and Mina. Lucy's engaged to Arthur. Mina starts to see Dracula in the clouds. And then we have the girls sexily running through the maze and randomly kiss.
Yeah.
And that's just men.
That feels like a men thing.
I mean, yes and no. Mina and Lucy are very queer-coded for a 90s movie.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't view it as queer coding as much as like making them gay for the audience. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
it's like it's supposed to be edgy. It's supposed to be like scandalous.
It's supposed to be
that they share
sexy.
a peck. Yeah, it's very 1992 of them, and like I don't love it.
I mean, I don't
hate
care
it
that much.
Yeah, it's not a huge deal, but it's just an artsy movie, and an artsy movie is gonna have 2 ladies kiss.
Then I did like this part. Like, first of all, Winona Ryder is so pretty.
Yeah,
she's too pretty.
She's a great actress,
and also like I really did like. It's right after this, like, sexily running in the rain and randomly kissing for no reason. I really liked the colors of their dresses in this kind of really green environment. So, like, Lucy's wearing a red dress, and her dress is, like, halfway up her
It's lingerie.
hip. It's,
essentially.
Oh, okay.
It's almost lingerie. But like, it's not supposed to be lingerie, but it's essentially lingerie. But yeah, no, Winona Ryder in this movie, it's killing it. Constantly.
Her accent's okay.
It's not the best, but because we have Keanu, it's fine.
And it's also like she doesn't let it stop her from acting.
Yeah.
Is the big thing.
Yeah. We have the clip with the Demeter and the captain's log. We have folks go missing on the Demeter. We have the zoo freakouts and the wolf escapes. And then we have some bits about Renfield going crazy and Seward taking morphine. Him taking morphine for no reason is such an art movie move, an art bro move.
He did do it in the book.
Okay, well, I missed that.
Not morphine. He took like chlorate.
Oh. Then we get a hairy monster Dracula POV, which, fun fact, this is not actually Oldman because he had an allergic reaction to the costume. They didn't want to remake it with stuff that he wasn't allergic to, so it's a random double whenever it's hairy Dracula. Hairy Dracula? I don't get. Why are you making him Sasquatch?
I don't know, man. I thought he like turned into a bat, maybe?
He turns into a bat later.
I don't know, man. It was weird as hell.
Yeah. But anyways, he goes...
Not as weird as some other stuff that's going to happen.
Yeah. But he goes and he gets up to the house that Mina's staying in. And there's the storm, and Mina wakes up and sees Lucy sleepwalking.
This is when it's the red and the white dresses and stuff.
Yeah, this is when it's like lingerie because it's nighttime. And then Mina walks in on seeing Lucy in a sexual position with hairy Dracula. And it's like sex/Dracula feeding on her. Which I... Like, yes, this movie is not as repressive as the other ones. But I think vampire pop culture over the last 100 years, I think like it gets more and more and more and more sexual, which I think I think makes sense to like the mythos of a vampire. Like, it's about domineering, it's about consent, it's about like there's all these things.
There's just a lot of like themes that come in there with the intimacy of like the blood exchange.
Exactly.
And like, I mean, and that's present from like Bram Stoker.
Yeah, it's just it gets more and more explicit as time has gone on.
I feel like and I have a little note about this later, so I won't talk about it. Yeah. But I just feel like it was just so over the top in a way that it just...
But everything in this movie is over the top.
Yeah.
So I think the movie would have been stronger if things were subdued and played more on the tension parts. But because everything is dialed up to a 10, I'm okay with this. I don't love it, but I think it makes sense in the context of this movie. And so when he's hairy and scary and being weird with her best friend, he says, "You can't see me." And then she can't see him, and it's just Lucy by herself on that bench out in the grass. And that's the first time he sees her. And this is where he kind of changes his personality to being from just like menacing evil to being like, oh, Elizabeth is here, which is like a thing.
Van Helsing like is like, oh yeah, like vampires aren't actually just in the day. It's a common misconception that they can't deal in daylight because you know it is. And Bram Stoker, like the Dracula doesn't have an issue being in daylight. He just doesn't have any powers. Yeah. Whereas like Dracula transforms himself into this young hot guy and then like runs into Mina on the streets.
Yeah, and also important to note, Van Helsing is played by
Anthony Hopkins.
Yes, which. Excellent casting.
It was a great choice.
Yeah. Also, fun fact, he is in the beginning of the movie, he's playing the like archbishop or whoever who's like condemning Elizabeth.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I was like, way to not have to pay another actor. Okay. Now we have Dracula being young and stalking Mina / Elizabeth, and he approaches her on the street, and immediately Mina like brushes him off and is like, "Who the fuck are you, man? Get away from me!" Like, she's by herself in the street. Like, this is like, I'm like, good on Mina.
Highly improper.
Yeah. And then she walks a little bit and then it's like, actually, I was rude. And like, it's sudden.
He teleports like in front of her, doesn't he?
Yeah. For this movie, everything being up to a 10, I wish they played a little bit more that it is not Mina feeling these feelings. It is her, Elizabeth. Like, there is something in her. We don't have to know like the explanation of how she is Elizabeth reincarnate. She looks like Elizabeth, right? I just wish there was like a moment, like a That's So Raven moment where she like phases out a little bit and it was like, what just happened? I wish there was a little bit more distinction between the part of Mina that falls in love with Dracula and the part of Mina that is actual Mina.
Okay, so that actually like is one of my big complaints is I'm sitting and like it kind of gets more in depth later, but I'm just sitting there and I'm like, damn, Mina, what a flaky bitch. Like one minute you're like, oh, Dracula, and then you're like Jonathan, and then you're like Dracula, and it's like this is stupid.
It's to get the teenagers who like love triangles, but also I think it's actually interesting if you see it as Elizabeth reincarnate inside of her. They don't do that well, and that's like that's the biggest flaw for me in this movie, besides Keanu's bad accent and bad acting. Honestly, if they had left Keanu's fail here and they just made it a little bit more explicit that Mina is not fully Mina when she's with Dracula, then I'd be 100% in.
See, I have a slightly different version of what I would want them to do with this. I would really like, if you want to make it a love triangle, and yes, you can have it be like her past life is calling to her.
Yeah.
But also just like, you know, she is this very heavily repressed person. And Jonathan is also
very repressed.
Repressed.
And so it is playing on that.
And so playing on that kind of a little bit more.
Like they go on a date at this museum. Van Helsing gets called to London because Lucy is getting sick. Harker is still trapped with the brides and they're drinking him weak.
Bad acting aside, poor Jonathan, right?
Oh, absolutely.
He's literally like, they're drinking from him enough to keep him weak and immobilized.
And make his hair gray.
They make his hair gray, and it just keeps getting grayer and grayer the more that he like gets influenced by these. So he's getting assaulted constantly. His blood is being drunk. And it's just like months of this crap. And then Van Helsing arrives.
Lucy's getting hypnotized by Dracula. The shadow is killing the flowers. The shadow work is like very like mimics Nosferatu here, and like on purpose too, which I think is fun.
It's a really kind of interesting dynamic between Lucy and Mina, and I do appreciate that they kind of kept this sort of close friendship, maybe more.
Yeah.
Like kind of vibe that they got from the books, where like the goodbye is really, really sweet until Lucy kind of like loses control of herself.
Yeah, definitely. Van Helsing sees her bite marks. They do transfusions immediately from Arthur, and Van Helsing talks the three men to help hunt the monster.
And then Van Helsing's like, the foe I pursued all my life, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
okay,
whatever. Mina's questioning like what's going on, and this is why I think you can either see it as Elizabeth within herself or her like not repressing her sexuality. I think you could see it as either or both.
The American has a really, really funny, like, line. Van Helsing says all this crazy shit. And he's like, you're crazy old coot. And the next shot is him drinking. And I'm like, you're supposed to be on guard and you're drinking.
And he falls asleep. Well, yeah.
And then the shadow, like, assaults her.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I get it. Vampirism is a metaphor for sex. I got it the first time.
Yeah. Again, this movie's at a 10 at all times. Yep.
And I cannot. I just like... And then Lucy dies, right?
Yeah.
Van Helsing has a really great line where he's like, yeah, I just want to cut off her head and take out her heart, to like the man whose person he liked just died. And I'm sitting there like, damn, Van Helsing, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Jonathan jumps out the window. Yeah, whatever.
They get married because Mina has been like, Jonathan can never know, because she's like, in my theory, coming back to her Mina
yeah, that's right. Because that's why he kills Lucy. It's because he's like, does it to sort of take revenge.
Yes.
And it's like, okay.
Yeah. And also, fun fact, Keanu and Winona Ryder may actually be married in the eyes of that church, because it was a real church and a real priest, and they went through a whole ceremony. And so sometimes to this day, Ryder will randomly text Keanu, "What's up, husband?" And I think that's really cute.
That is pretty damn cute, actually.
Yeah.
Mina and Jonathan married while Lucy was dying. And the tomb.
Ugh.
So they come back and Mina sees Dracula again.
Yes.
And she's like, oh no. And I'm like, ma'am, you're married. And it's okay, because I kind of get it now, because you did the thing about the reincarnation shit.
Yeah. They kill Lucy. It's gory. They use jelly. Fun fact, they use red jelly for the blood in this movie.
Huh.
Yeah. Van Helsing is like, here's the deal with Dracula. And it's like from the book, exactly the list we talked about in the book episode of the like strengths and weaknesses of Dracula. And I was like, nice.
And then so they go to the asylum to talk to Renfield, because they figured out that he has some kind of connection.
Yeah.
And this is where I was like, there's like a really interesting feminist version of Dracula movie somewhere that exists somewhere. That really delves into the horror of being stalked and disbelieved and isolated.
Yes.
And actually, this is where like the Dracula Mina relationship really doesn't work for me, because Renfield's like, no, sweet lady, you must run away. And I'm like, Okay, so, like, are we supposed... I'm so confused. Because, like, yeah, Dracula fucking sucks, but Mina keeps going back to her, and she's very sympathetic for the most part, and I think we're supposed to care about her, so why? Why?
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways. You can't have Dracula be this inhuman monster with some tragedy and anger and wrath, and then also have him just be simping for his dead wife.
And so as the boys are trying to find Dracula, like in the book, Dracula actually goes and hangs out with Mina, and they have a very intimate scene where Mina's like, I love you, I want to be with you, and he's like, I love you too much for that to happen.
And that's bullshit, because Dracula never would have done that shit. And you know what?
He also doesn't, because they end up Mina ends up drinking his blood anyways.
It's also so frustrating because this is where, like, Mina also finds out that he killed Lucy in this scene. And she's sitting, and I'm like, ma'am, he killed your best friend, and you're still turning yourself into a fucking vampire for this bitch. And I just kind of wish that they, like, there's again, going back to that repression versus, like sensuality. If I was making a movie and I wanted to do it like this for some reason, I would have delved more into the fact of like Dracula is a monster of power. He does not care about consent. So them
trying to make him sympathetic.
Them trying to make it so that he's sympathetic here. And I'm like, man, he already assaulted 2 women in their sleep, including Mina. Just because she's okay with it now that she's awake doesn't mean it's not assault. So them turning scene from like him forcing her to drink to
like a lovemaking scene, essentially.
To like a lovemaking scene of her forcing him to let her drink. It's just such a bad move because it removes a lot of the like undertones of the scene. And it also like, why the fuck does she pick Jonathan? The answer to that question should be because Dracula would never have let her live as her own person. And you could have shown that by making him force her to drink.
I agree. This scene is the worst part of their weird entanglement. The actual like love scene of it all. But it happens. And then the men come in and Dracula turns into a large bat monster randomly and then goes away. And then
Mina starts freaking out, being like, oh my God, I'm changing. I'm like, bitch, you did this to yourself. I am not sympathetic.
And again, if they had played up the Elizabeth like
taking over,
then it would be then it would be like not like fine, but like I'd be okay with it.
It would also be more messy, horrifying because like somebody coming in and taking over your body and making you do things you don't want to do. That's the essence of horror. Like literally. And it's just, you also could have played into Dracula being this corrupting force on her. And they don't show that because they fuck up this scene. Sorry, this scene made me mad.
I mean, it is the worst part of the movie. I agree.
Like, I don't hate the concept, but Mina seesawing so desperately without any kind of context for why she's doing it just makes her look pathetic. And I'm like...
It's she goes from being really cool in this movie to being really pathetic and back and forth. Like, it's really bad because I feel like I like this version of Mina sometimes because she's less of a pick-me. She's more like an actual person, like a person of the time. Winona Ryder's a good actress.
And it's just icky,
Yes. Even if it wasn't Elizabeth taking over her, if they just had him hypnotize her a few more times, then I'd be like, that's another easy fix, right? One scene of him hypnotizing.
If you want to play up this angle of like having her be torn between the two or whatever, like giving Jonathan moments where he gives her the agency and gives her choice. Because he doesn't. There's like a few moments here and there, but they're so small.
But anyway. the end is similar to the book where we have the party is chasing him back to Transylvania and they're split up in 2 and it's almost exactly like the book, which I liked. I liked seeing this out because again, it's one of the more entertaining parts.
Van Helsing and Mina are together and like Mina almost seduces Van Helsing.
Because she's a vampire. And that part I didn't like because of the age difference of the actors. But
Mina resisted it in the book, and
it goes with the tone of the movie.
I guess. Mina runs to Dracula and everybody and people nearly get killed because she interferes and like stops this thing. And Quincy does get killed, but no one cares.
Yeah. Yeah. No one cares about Quincy in the book either. But then Jonathan stops and lets her go in, which I think was a good move.
And then they have her like kind of do this final kill, and then they reunite their souls in heaven. So Jonathan is now married to a woman who pointed a gun at him in defense of a man who had him be sexually assaulted and fed on for months. Cool.
Yep. Do you want to hear some fun facts?
Sure.
All the effects in the movie were practical or in camera. There's no post effects minus sound.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, which I thought was really cool. I said all the fun facts except for the sad one. So that's the fun fact. During the rehearsals of the movie, Ryder and Oldman were getting along great and they had great chemistry. When they're filming the like meet cute scene in London, there was like a prop zucchini that Oldman pretended it was his penis just to like between shoots to like get a reaction. He thought as a joke because men suck. And it made Winona so uncomfortable that the rest of the movie she was like really like, this is allegedly according to an extra. All right, but there's a few people have said this, and it's a widely known that the rest of the movie they did not get along, which you can kind of see their chemistry isn't as good as it could have been. Ryder has said years and years later that Oldman's acting was so intense and a little bit dangerous, is what like she alludes to, because he also like when he was acting he stayed away.
Method people?
I don't know if he is, but he secluded himself from the like other men specifically because also Coppola had the three men go on like random little adventures to like become buds.
That's actually you can kind of see that.
You can see that for sure. And so in that same sense, Oldman was kind of separate. And so people didn't really know why, but that's allegedly according to some of the extras that were there. That's what they said. But what Ryder has gone on record since then saying that he has since apologized and that they're nice.
We're cool.
Like they're cool now. But like that's what happened, which is like it's just it's just a dick joke with a prop between scenes, but also, like that's not like you're older than Winona, like you are a more powerful actor, like it is, it's just sketchy. And so after I read that, it was obviously after I watched the movie, I was like, well, I'm not gonna watch this movie ever again, because now whenever I see fucking Oldman, I'm like, great. All that to say, I think this is the best Dracula movie we watched of the bunch. I think Oldman does a great job as Dracula. I love the tone and just the vibe of the movie. We've already gone into detail about why we don't like parts of the change.
I do think it's a good adaptation.
It's a really good adaptation.
I think they make really smart choices about what they keep and what they cut. There's really not a misstep except for that one scene.
Yes.
Which makes me pissed off, but like, I don't hate the idea of Mina being attracted to Dracula because they sell it really well. In the musical, that's a whole other story. But
Renfield, the 2023 movie. Before we go into it, I knew nothing about this besides that it was a movie about Renfield's relationship in the modern day with Dracula. The actor who plays Renfield is one of my favorite actors of all time.
Nicholas Hoult.
He's in Warm Bodies, which is also one of my favorite movie adaptations that my friend and I will be doing next year. Yes, in 2025, Warm Bodies is coming your way. One of my favorite books, books to movie adaptations.
He's in The Great and The Menu, which are like movies that I like. Oh, actually, The Great isn't a movie, it's a TV show.
And
that is great. On my to-do list.
Oh, it's good.
And then The Menu is one of my favorite, like, watch minute clips of it on TikTok and then like scroll and watch through the whole thing.
He's a great actor.
He really is.
So and he's great in like weird comedies, like in Warm Bodies. And so when I saw that he was in this, that's why I wanted to watch this, and that's why I also wanted a modern version of this. And it being called Renfield and focused on Renfield, I think is fun to look at it in retrospect of us reading the book, of us watching the three different versions. Very, very different versions.
Well, it's actually kind of funny because like I was watching this and then I like it was like this was the moment where I was like, wait a minute, we didn't watch the 1931.
Yeah.
Because this one kind of acts as like a sequel to it in
and that's what he wanted
ways.
The director wanted to be he called it a quasi sequel.
Yeah.
He had pitched it as a sequel, but then they didn't love that, which I think honestly is not many people have seen the 1931 one, like that. Their target audience for this, I mean.
For good reason.
Yeah. But they also reference so many other Dracula movies, even the ones that we had just watched, which I thought was so fun.
It was definitely like even though I was like, man, so we picked this one over the 1931 one, I was like, I'm really glad that we did choose to watch this movie, because I think like I don't think I would have watched it on my own.
Yeah. It starts off with Renfield in a support group for codependents, and I love this take on Renfield.
Yes.
This is fun. This is quirky. It is so good.
It's also such a like realistic thing for someone who's been in a in that kind of relationship for so long.
Yeah.
Because like, and then they also revealed that like Renfield gets powers by eating bugs,
Which is fun.
which is like such a hilarious take from the book.
Yes.
And honestly, I have very unusually for me, listeners, I only have 2 pages of notes.
That is very unusual for you.
Yeah.
And we also see a backstory of how whenever Dracula is destroyed or almost destroyed, Renfield like nurses him back to health, and they go to a new city. And so now they're in New Orleans, and like they're in an abandoned hospital, and it's like they're down on their luck. Like they've gone through all Dracula's money. And I like that they're like not down on their luck. Like it's Dracula's still evil. Dracula played by Nick Cage, which hilarious.
That was
casting.
so smart.
Yes.
Like, oh my God.
Yes. Nick Cage does great in this, and he's barely playing someone who is just Nick Cage, which I love.
He's like, it's like Nick Cage, but like a sadist instead of just a weirdo who can't manage money.
Yes. And then the worst part comes in, and that is that this is a propaganda movie with Awkwafina, which I did not know. I did not know Awkwafina was in this movie.
I didn't either. And then I saw her and I was like, oh, damn.
And then like, at least she's not playing a character like she usually does. You know what I mean? She's just a person that happens to be a cop and named Awkwafina. And also her last name is Quincy.
Yeah. And
her last name is
Morris. And her dad was Quincy Morris.
Which is fun.
That's a fun reference.
Yeah.
It's a fun reference.
So in general, this movie, my least favorite parts are the cop parts.
Yeah. Definitely. Why is there like a cop turf war in my vampire movie?
Yes. Okay. So we have the cops versus the
Lobos.
The Lobos, which is like this family gang that's taken over this city and is like paying off the cops. And it's
Ben Schwartz.
Ben Schwartz. I love Ben Schwartz, and I have the hugest crush on Ben Schwartz. And okay, I have a huge crush on Ben Schwartz. So like huge.
That makes sense.
And and the guy who plays Renfield in this, what's his name?
Nicholas Hoult.
And like that is why I enjoyed this movie so much, because there it is, goofy tall boys being goofy, and I'm like, I have a type.
I really, yeah, that's what I meant, man. like the thin spindliness of Ben, very similar frame.
I know. I am well aware.
So I actually did like this movie a lot, especially by the end. I was upset when I saw her, but Awkwafina did decently.
She did a good job. It's just
the cop stuff sucked.
The cop stuff sucked.
I didn't care. I wanted to see.
I didn't care about her. I didn't care about her and her sister. I
care about her and her sister, but that's a whole other.
That's because you have a sister. I was like, no, this is dumb. We don't need you to use your grief to become a cop. That's not why you should become a cop. Go to therapy.
Yep.
But anyways, Dracula wants to create world domination, and Renfield is in his codependent group, and he's like, maybe
I'm gonna like separate myself from this. Actually, no. What happens is he goes to this nightclub to like find a victim, because Dracula's like, I need someone pure and healthy.
Yeah, he's been finding the codependents like abusers / manipulators and feeding them to Dracula, which I'm like, nice.
Yeah.
But and I like the spin that like evil people don't heal Dracula and don't keep him immortal, like
they don't taste good.
Yeah, and I think that's fun.
I think it's a nice touch. So he goes to this bar to find like some innocent people. Awkwafina's there, and the Lobos, and the Lobos go confront
Teddy has to prove himself.
Teddy has to prove himself to his mom, because like he does something he like goes
doing rich boy shit.
Yeah, Renfield like kidnaps / kills his victims that he was supposed to kill. So he's embarrassed. So his mom is like, oh, you deal. And then he gets caught in a traffic stop.
Yes.
That's why.
Yeah.
So he like goes to go kill like the cop that had the audacity to arrest him.
Or threaten her.
Threaten her. And then he's like, yeah, your dad died begging for his life, and you're going to do the same thing. And she's like, no, fuck you, shoot me.
Yeah.
And then, like, Renfield's like, oh!
Yeah.
That's a thing? Mm-hmm. So he decides to stand up for himself. He separates himself from Dracula. He goes and he gets an apartment.
The apartment's so cute.
The apartment is like 70s swag.
That sweater he gets, I want it.
It's a very 70s, which is a very Janessa era.
It is. This movie is very Janessa coded minus the cop shit, because I love comedies that are also like ridiculously gory for no reason, like the Kingsman movies. I love those movies. Like this is like it's Janessa. This is a movie, and it's an adaptation upon an adaptation upon an like this is just such a Janessa movie again, minus the cops. If you don't have the cops, then you have to like change the whole story. I guess you can get someone else.
Private detective.
Yeah, private detective.
Private security system.
Or a fucking activist.
Yeah. So he sees her stand up and that he's inspired. So he decides to stand up and like protect himself.
The self-care montage.
The self-care montage was hilarious. And then the Lobos track down like Dracula's hiding spot, and Dracula very nearly like kills all of them, and
except for Teddy, of course.
Except for Teddy. I just kept calling him Ben Schwartz.
His name's Teddy. Teddy Lobo.
So Teddy like goes and like gets kidnapped by Dracula, and then Dracula's like, my bitch has betrayed me. And so he goes and like goes to ruin Renfield's life and slaughters his support group in front of him.
Yeah.
Which was real fucked up.
Yeah, it really was. And then Dracula has this like, it goes full like manipulator and says like, I'm not the monster, you are. You're the one that's bringing people to me. It's your fault, all these people, which is like part true. Like you are helping with this murders.
He's also like, you've made up this story where you're the victim because I'm manipulating you, but you've been doing this of your own free will and you know it. And it's like, this is like
you abandoned your family. Like,
it was so good. And it was like, Jesus, why is the best depiction of Dracula's metaphor as an abuser happening in Renfield, the 2023 comedy?
So Dracula's teaming up with the Lobos so that he can get world domination and they can use his powers. And Awkwafina ends up teaming up with Renfield, but also thinking that Renfield is the reason people are dying, which is true, but like he's not the murderer, but he is like helping them. So like she is kind of right to be scared. He makes her snickerdoodles with frosting, and that is not snickerdoodles. Snickerdoodles do not have frosting on them. They might have a glaze, like a cinnamon glaze or a chai glaze, but it was full on sprinkles and frosting.
Yeah.
And like, sure, Renfield's been living with a vampire for the last 100+ years, but like that infuriated me. Yeah. Don't call them fucking snickerdoodles if they're not snickerdoodles. Justice for snickerdoodles. They get all their gear and they're going to go in and infiltrate the Lobos headquarters.
Well, they're going to meet up with her sister first, and then her sister gets kidnapped.
Yes. Yeah, so they're going to go in and save her, and they get a bunch of bugs so that Renfield can have all his powers. And by this point, we know the cops are dirty, right?
Yeah. The cops, we know that the cops are dirty from pretty much the moment that she
is trying to arrest Teddy.
Arrest Renfield. Because that's when her partner betrays her, and all of the cops and Lobos come in.
Yeah. And so they go in and they have this big fucking battle of these because now Teddy is also a familiar to Dracula and can have the same powers.
He snorts a millipede, and I nearly throw up. I was I had a full body shudder for a good 5 minutes, where I was just sitting there going, "Oh, that is so great!"
But such a good move for his character, though.
It's so
obviously
character.
There's so much cocaine around in this,
Teddy starts monologuing about how he's opposites of Renfield, and he's the better version, and Renfield's just sitting there being like, we've barely met twice. I don't know who you are.
I love them and their battle, and I was like, this was made for me. This scene specifically. Get away, Awkwafina. You're disrupting my perfect movie. And they have a big old battle, and it's great.
It is.
They're trying to get in there before sunset, but they're able because it's a high-tech, modern. I like how they use modern technology to oh, you can't be in the sun. Let's fucking close the blinds, dude. Which is great. And they go in, and Awkwafina's having her moment. The character's having her moment or whatever, and tries to get the blinds up, and it almost doesn't work.
I actually really did like that scene where Dracula is kind of tempting Awkwafina.
Oh, definitely. It was really good.
Mostly because of Nicholas Holt's reaction. He was just so because he's connected to Dracula still, so he's just so emotional during it. And he's like, this is the one person that he's met that he's ever seen stand up.
And his manipulator is taking her away, which is what manipulators do. And then Dracula and Ren are having like a battle and like talking back and forth, working shit out. And then while they're doing this, Awkwafina's character uses cocaine as a power, and thanks to a Wiccan tumbler, it's able to trap Dracula in the circle, and then they chop him up and put him into concrete and
ice cubes.
And concrete ice cubes. Oh, it's so funny. And throughout this movie, we get scenes and clips from like the Nosferatu bits. We get clips from the Christopher Lee's bit. Like there's and like other ones I've obviously not seen, but like there's just other Draculas all throughout whenever Nick Cage is on screen, and I think that's so fun. I love little treasures, little treats.
It was a very fun movie and a good way to sort of end the like Dracula experience, especially. Well, it wasn't the way I ended my Dracula experience, because I, unlike Janessa, watch the 1931 version.
And also with Dracula's blood, they can bring people back from the dead.
Oh, so they bring back,
they bring back all the support groups. So thankfully.
And also her sister.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah. Which I, again, didn't care about. Do you want to hear the fun facts?
Yes.
Nick Cage studied other Draculas to reference, specifically citing Nosferatu and Christopher Lee's version, which is obvious, like we talked about. And then the castle featured in the beginning as Dracula's castle in the flashbacks is the same castle that they used in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Huh.
Isn't that fun?
That is fun.
Yeah. I think this movie is a fun movie. I think all the non-cop parts are really good. The cop parts do bring this down to like a 3 out of 5 for me because it is a propaganda movie, and also the Awkwafina of it all. Though she does do a good job.
I think,
she is a good actress. It's just the problematic bits of her past.
Yeah, and I mean, she does a good job. And it's final thoughts. I thought it was a fun movie. I would not watch it again.
Yeah, it's not a good adaptation.
No.
But it is a fun adaptation. It's a good
adaptation of
the
like,
genre.
Of the genre
yes.
and of like the movies specifically.
Yes.
Specifically the 1931 one, honestly.
Yeah. But it's not a good book
Dracula,
adaptation.
Because it's the completely wrong tone.
Yeah, but like that's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so you watched the 1931 one.
Yeah. And I mean there's not really a ton to say about it, to be honest. It's pretty boring.
Yeah.
It like the only really interesting bits is like this guy comes in and instead of it being Jonathan who's the solicitor, it's Renfield, and he's the one that like gets Dracula to England, and they just keep cutting like every 5 minutes. And I'm just sitting there like, huh.
Was it made for TV or something?
No. I'm guessing it was budget, honestly.
Or it could have just been the style back then. I have not watched many movies from the 30s that weren't like ridiculous art movies that no one's heard of that my art professor or my film professors made me watch.
Oh, but yeah, so the guy is actually Renfield. He gets Dracula to London. He meets like Jonathan and Mina, and Dr. Seward is Mina's father. And then like all the hypnosis stuff happens, and it's just pretty much run of the mill. Yeah. The only thing that's really, really remarkable is the lighting and the shadows that they use for Bela Lugosi, who plays Dracula. Like they highlight his eyes whenever he's hypnotizing somebody, and it's a really cool effect. Also, the guy who plays Renfield is scary. Like he does a really good job of kind of capturing this like manic like insanity. And I also really liked Mina in this version because yes, she was a damsel in distress, but you can also kind of she's very much like torn between the hypnosis that Dracula's doing and also being like, holy moly, he's going to kill and make me kill my husband, and I don't want to do that. Yeah. So it was kind of fun. It was boring at parts.
Yeah. Of the movies you watched, who's your favorite Dracula?
Christopher Lee.
I think he's my favorite too. And I think
Gary Oldman's a very close second.
Yes. Yeah, I think my ranking of the 4 we watched would be Christopher Lee number 1, Gary Oldman number 2, honestly Nick Cage number 3, and then whoever plays Nosferatu number 4.
So the way that it goes for me is Chris Lee, Gary Oldman, and then I would put Bela Lugosi, and then Nick Cage, and then Nosferatu, because he's just a big scary monster.
Yeah.
And he has like the things that are most scary about him are like the way he's shot and framed.
Yeah. Amanda texted me while we were watching these and said that she had an idea for how we could do Muppet Dracula.
Muppet Dracula.
Yes.
Obviously, Kermit is Jonathan.
Yes.
And
wait. Who's the human?
Okay, I think it has to be Van Helsing.
Okay.
Because the Van Helsingness of it all is the only one who can match the freak of the Muppets as in Dracula.
Okay. Thank you. Is it always that's the most important thing to me in a movie is who's the human?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about making it like Dracula, but then a human terrorized Muppets.
Yeah. No, I think Van Helsing's a smart choice.
Yeah.
It'd either have to be Van Helsing or Harker.
Yeah.
But I think Van Helsing's a smarter
but
choice.
I want Kermit to be John Harker because he's,
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then
obviously
that means that Mina Harker is Miss Piggy.
Absolutely she is.
And I just really want to see her karate chop Dracula.
Absolutely she will.
And then I want Gonzo to be Arthur.
Okay.
And that means Camilla's Lucy.
Yes. That's so good.
I did research, man. I want Seward to be Honeydew because can't you just see like Professor Honeydew?
Yes,
yes. Can't you just see him be like, okay, Beaker, let's give him a mouse and see what happens?
Yes. Okay, who's Renfield?
Who's Renfield? Pepe.
Yes.
Yes. And then Dracula's Uncle Deadly. I had to do some deep dives here.
Who?
Look him up. He's scary. Quincy is Fozzie.
Okay. I was going to pitch Fozzie as Dracula because I think that'd be really funny.
That's also fair.
And and instead of killing the vampirism,
he just tells bad jokes.
He just tells bad jokes and they faint or something like that. And like to stop him, like he has to get like a cure. You know what I mean? Like there's no killing. Mm-hmm. That'd be funny.
That would be funny. Mm-hmm. I feel like Dracula's kind of impossible to adapt as the book is currently because it's just built on, and I'm kind of paraphrasing a quote that I found on TV Tropes. It's built on such slow tension and putting all of these different pieces together where like you as the reader are the only person who has all of the information and who can put together why these events are connected. Mm-hmm. And even then, like, sometimes you get a newspaper clip and you're like, why the fuck do I care?
Yeah.
And movies just don't work that way. They have one viewpoint, or if they have multiple viewpoints, like, they need to be strung together in a very logical, consistent way.
Yeah.
And there's just not a good way to have a Dracula adaptation that'll keep that same, like, horror and tension and atmosphere throughout the story.
I think it is hard to make it into a movie. I think with the right writers and directors and funding behind it, I think it'd make a killer, no pun intended, miniseries. Mm-hmm. I think
they do have
an 8 to 10 episode. I'm sure they do. They have Dracula everything. You want anything? They have Count Chocula, for God's sake, right? But I think an 8 to 10 episode miniseries done correctly would be great because then you could have a whole episode from a different POV randomly because that happens all the time in TV shows now, right?
The other way, like I know I joked about it being a found footage book. A found footage like modernized version would be really interesting to watch as well.
It'd be way more scary. And I'm sure that there are some of those out there that we just don't know of because we are weenie.coms.
Yes. And also like we don't have time to sit there and watch every single version of Dracula.
No.
Because fun fact, it's been in the public domain for a very long time.
Yes. Yeah.
Not when Nosferatu was made. Rip to them.
Yep. I mean, but it survived, which is fun.
Yeah. It did survive by the skin of its teeth, man.
Yep. God bless America.
God bless America. Cacao.
What was that?
It was an eagle.
Okay. I think that's a sign that we need to wrap this up. Thank you, Amanda, for watching all these Dracula movies. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys listened to this whole long ass episode and that you enjoyed it. Thank you guys for sharing and rating 5 stars and subscribing, and make sure you follow us on Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast because I'm posting a lot of cool stuff there and I want people to see it. And if you're listening this far, go follow me. You made it to the end. Congratulations. Next week we'll be doing more vampires, but this time we're gonna be me and my friend Stephanie will be reading Twilight, so buckle in for that ride. Thank you, Amanda, for joining and doing all this.
Thank you for reading Dracula.
You're welcome. Bram Stoker can get wrecked. Anyways, and remember,
read the book first.